Imagine pouring years into a company, building a groundbreaking system, only to be tossed aside the moment it's finished. But when his boss thought he was gone for good, he had no idea of the real power over that system, and the company's future still belonged to him. This is the story of how one man turned betrayal into the ultimate comeback, and left his boss begging for mercy. Welcome to the Payback Vault, your go-to hub for revenge stories, epic karma, and jaw-dropping payback. If you love thrilling tales of justice, betrayal, and intense drama, you're in the right place. Have you ever believed in something so strongly that you were willing to sacrifice everything for it? That was me. For more than a decade, I was the epitome of dedication and loyalty to my company. Weekends, sacrificed. Family vacations, missed. I was even known for skipping holidays because, in my mind, my work was my priority. And, truthfully, I believed my loyalty would one day lead to rewards. My career was something I'd invested everything into. I didn't just want to climb the ladder. I wanted to make an impact, and after years of grinding, I found myself as the lead on something that could change everything for our company. I created a groundbreaking project called Fabs, the fully automated business system. Fabs wasn't just another piece of software or an upgrade. It was a comprehensive system that would streamline every aspect of our business, automate routine processes, and save millions. With Fabs in place, we'd not only operate more efficiently but could potentially sell the system to other businesses. I was proud, excited even. Every line of code, every test run, every late night spent debugging made me feel like I was building something that would be my legacy. Fabs was my brainchild, and I knew that once it launched, my position in the company would be solidified, or so I thought. But as Fabs neared completion, I started noticing something strange. My boss, Evan, who had been so enthusiastic about the project, suddenly became distant. Evan had always been supportive, always had his door open for me to share updates, but that changed. He seemed less interested, almost dismissive. I'd bring him detailed progress reports, expecting his usual interest, but he barely glanced at them. Instead, he'd wave me off with a quick, "Great work," and turn back to whatever he was doing. At first, I thought he was just busy. After all, he was juggling other projects and responsibilities. But as weeks passed, it felt more intentional, like he was distancing himself. My gut told me something was wrong, but I brushed it off, thinking I was reading too much into it. In retrospect, maybe I should have trusted my instincts. The day it all came crashing down was a day I'll never forget. I was called into Evan's office for what I assumed was a performance review or maybe even a pre-launch discussion. My coworkers gave me encouraging smiles, and one even patted me on the back, saying, "You're about to get the recognition you deserve." And I believed it. After all, Fabs was my creation, the company's new crown jewel, and I was its architect. But when I walked into Evan's office, the air felt heavy. He barely looked up as I entered, and instead of his usual warm greeting, he gestured for me to sit. A bad feeling crept over me, but I pushed it aside, thinking I was just being paranoid. Without any preamble, he slid a piece of paper across the desk toward me. I picked it up, my eyes scanning the words, my heart sinking with every line. Termination. I was being let go. I looked up at him, utterly stunned. "Evan," I stammered, trying to process the words on the page. "I don't understand. What's this about?" Evan's voice was cold, distant. "We've decided to eliminate your position," he said flatly. "It's purely a financial decision." A financial decision. I felt a mix of shock, confusion, and betrayal all at once. 10 years of dedication, loyalty, and countless sacrifices, and now, with Fabs just weeks from launch, I was being cast aside like yesterday's news. I poured my heart and soul into this project. I'd put in years of my life, missed countless personal moments, and given everything to this company. And now, they were just letting me go? My voice trembled as I tried to make sense of it. But Fabs, the project? Evan's gaze was cold, almost indifferent. "Don't worry about that. We'll manage it," he said, waving a hand dismissively. "Thanks for all your hard work." Thanks for all your hard work. Those 5 words felt like a slap in the face. They were hollow, empty, and completely inadequate given everything I'd done. I'd given this company years of my life, sacrificed personal relationships, and poured every ounce of creativity I had into Fabs. And this was how they repaid me? I felt numb, hollow, betrayed. But beneath that numbness, something else was bubbling up, anger. As I walked back to my desk to pack up my things, I felt that anger grow, transforming into something powerful, They thought they could just take Fabs, the system I had created from scratch, and carry on without me. But there was one thing they didn't know. Fabs wasn't just software, it was my life's work, my masterpiece, and I had built something into it that no one else knew about, a failsafe. Nothing malicious, of course, but a small feature that would prevent the system from running without my specific access code. If anyone tried to use Fabs without my permission, it would go into a locked state. They wouldn't be able to operate it, much less benefit from it. I packed up my things in a daze, feeling a strange sense of calm settle over me. My co-workers watched in shock as I emptied my desk. Some came over, whispering words of sympathy, disbelief in their voices. "This is so unfair," one of them said. "You're the one who built Fabs. How can they just let you go like this?" It was a good question, one that I intended to make sure they asked themselves repeatedly. As I left the office for the last time, I could feel their eyes on me, some filled with pity, others with anger on my behalf. But I wasn't feeling sorry for myself, not anymore. In fact, I felt something else, anticipation, because I knew that sooner or later, they would need me, they would come crawling back. A week passed. I tried to move on, even considered looking for new job opportunities, but I knew it was only a matter of time. Then, just as I expected, my phone rang. It was Evan. I let it ring a few times, savoring the moment, before finally answering. "Hello?" There was tension in his voice, an awkwardness I hadn't heard before. "Hey, we need you to come in and look at Fabs. It's, not running correctly." "Oh," I replied, feigning confusion. "That's strange. It was working perfectly when I left." Evan cleared his throat. "Well, it's not now. Can you come in?" The desperation in his voice was palpable, and I relished every second of it. "I suppose I could," I said slowly, "but I'd need to be compensated for my time. You know, as a consultant." Silence. I could almost hear him gritting his teeth on the other end of the line, but he had no choice, and he knew it. "Fine, we'll arrange something." When I arrived at the office, it was surreal. My former coworkers stared at me as I walked past, their eyes wide with surprise. Some even gave me nods of respect. Evan met me at the entrance, trying to maintain his composure, but I could see the discomfort in his face. He led me to the server room, where Fab sat, locked and lifeless. I took my time, pretending to run diagnostics, checking logs, and appearing to troubleshoot. After a while, I finally entered the code to unlock it. "There, it's all set," I said, watching the relief wash over Evan's face, quickly replaced by something else, resentment. He knew he was now dependent on me, and it was eating him alive. But that was only the beginning. Over the next few months, Fabs would mysteriously act up here and there. Each time, they'd call me back, and each time, I'd charge my full consulting fee. By now, it wasn't just about the money. Each visit was a reminder to Evan and the company of just how valuable I was. I could see the frustration growing in Evan's eyes every time he had to call me. For someone as prideful as him, admitting he needed me must have been torture, and I loved every second of it. One day, I arrived to fix yet another glitch in Fabs. As I was leaving the server room, I overheard a conversation between two of my former coworkers. They hadn't noticed me standing nearby. "Why do you think Fabs keeps breaking down?" one whispered, sounding genuinely puzzled. The other one shrugged. "I don't know, but isn't it interesting that every time it does, he's the only one who can fix it?" They both shared a look, a dawning realization in their eyes, and for a moment, I thought they'd figured it out, but then one of them shrugged and muttered, "I guess he's just that good." I had to fight back a grin as I walked away. Little did they know, I was indeed that good enough to design a system that only I could control. The satisfaction of watching them struggle, of knowing they needed me even after discarding me, was more satisfying than I'd ever imagined. It wasn't just payback, it was justice. Then came the day that would change everything. Evan called me in, yet again, to fix another issue with Fabs. By now, I'd grown accustomed to the routine. I'd arrive, take my time troubleshooting, and then unlock the system once more. But this time, as I entered the building, something felt different. I could sense a tension in the air. Co-workers who used to avoid eye contact now glanced my way with looks of suspicion. A few whispered as I passed by, and some even outright stared. Evan was waiting for me in the server room, but this time, he looked more frustrated than ever. He barely acknowledged me as I entered, his jaw clenched, his hands balled into fists. "Fix it," he snapped, not even bothering with pleasantries. I held back a smirk. pretending to be oblivious to his annoyance. "Of course, Evan," I said smoothly, settling down at the console. "I'll take care of it." As I began to work, I could feel his gaze on me, practically burning a hole through my back. Normally, he'd leave me to it, but today, he stayed, watching my every move. I could tell he was growing suspicious, but I wasn't worried. After all, he didn't have any proof. As far as he knew, Fabs was just a complex system that required my expertise to maintain. Finally, I unlocked the system, turning to him with my usual professional smile. "There you go, all set." Evan glared at me, his jaw working as if he wanted to say something but couldn't find the words. After a long, tense moment, he muttered, "Thanks," and turned to leave. But as I watched him walk away, I had a feeling this wasn't over. Sure enough, a few days later, I received an email from the company's HR department. They wanted me to come in for a formal discussion regarding Fabs. I could tell by the tone of the email that they were trying to be careful, but the implication was clear. They suspected something, and they wanted answers. Now, I could have easily walked away at that point. After all, I'd made a nice sum for my consulting fees, and I could find work elsewhere if I wanted to. But there was a part of me that wasn't ready to let go. I wanted to see this through, to make sure Evan and the company understood just how badly they'd messed up by underestimating me. When I arrived at the HR meeting, I was greeted by the head of HR and Evan, who was clearly struggling to maintain his composure. I took a seat across from them, folding my hands in my lap and giving them my best innocent employee look. "Thank you for coming in," the HR director began, glancing nervously at Evan before continuing. "We've noticed some recurring issues with the Fab system, and we wanted to get your perspective on what might be causing them." I nodded, feigning concern. Of course, Fabs is a complex system, and as with any technology, there can be unexpected challenges, but I'm here to help however I can. Evan's eyes narrowed as he leaned forward, his voice laced with barely concealed frustration. "Is there anything about Fabs that we should know? Anything that might explain why these issues keep happening?" I met his gaze evenly, keeping my expression carefully neutral. As I said, Fabs is a highly specialized system. It requires a certain level of expertise to maintain, and I'm the one who knows it best. I'm always happy to assist, but if you have concerns, perhaps we could discuss additional compensation for ongoing support? The HR director shifted uncomfortably, clearly not expecting me to bring up compensation. Evan, however, looked like he was ready to explode, but he couldn't argue. He needed me, and he knew it. After a tense silence, he finally nodded. "Fine," he muttered. "We'll discuss it." I left that meeting with a sense of victory, knowing that I'd managed to secure not only my consulting fees, but now potentially an ongoing support contract. It was more than I could have asked for. They had tried to discard me, but now they were practically begging for my help. Weeks turned into months, and Fabs continued to be a thorn in Evan's side. Each time it malfunctioned, they'd call me in, and each time, I'd fix it just enough to keep it running, temporarily. Of course, by now, my fees had added up to more than my original salary, and I knew Evan resented every penny he had to pay me. But I wasn't done yet. One day, I received a message from a former colleague, someone I'd always gotten along with but hadn't spoken to since leaving the company. He reached out, congratulating me on how I'd handled Evan and telling me that word had spread about what I was doing. "People are starting to realize what really happened," he wrote. "They're starting to see you for what you are, the one who built Fabs and the one who controls it." I smiled as I read his message, feeling a sense of satisfaction. My reputation had grown beyond just being a former employee. Now, I was seen as the architect of Fabs, the one who held the keys to the company's most valuable asset, and even if they didn't say it aloud, everyone knew that without me, Fabs and the company would fall apart. By now, Evan's resentment had turned into something darker. He'd gone from begrudgingly tolerating me to outright avoiding me, only speaking to me when absolutely necessary. But that didn't bother me. In fact, it only made my victory sweeter. Then came the final blow. One morning, as I was sipping my coffee and reviewing some potential job offers that had come my way, I received an urgent email from Evan. It was a desperate plea, asking me to come in immediately. Fabs had gone down completely, and this time, no one could get it back online. I took my time, enjoying my coffee, and letting him sweat for a while before replying. When I finally agreed to come in, I could almost feel the relief in his response. When I arrived at the office, the tension was palpable. Evan looked exhausted, his hair disheveled, his eyes bloodshot. "You have to fix this," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "The entire company depends on it." I looked around, taking in the desperate faces of my former co-workers, the panic in their eyes, and for a moment, I felt a pang of sympathy. But then I remembered how they'd let Evan cast me aside, how they'd watched as he threw me away without a second thought. I approached the server room, my heart pounding with a mix of excitement and satisfaction. I knew that this was the moment I'd been waiting for. I took my time, pretending to analyze the problem, running tests, and finally entered the code that would bring Fabs back online, temporarily. Of course, Evan watched me with a mixture of desperation and hatred, knowing that he was now completely at my mercy. And in that moment, I knew that I'd won. After that day, I never heard from Evan again. I'd proven my point, shown him the true cost of underestimating me, and as I walked away from that company for the last time, I felt a sense of closure, of justice served. Shit! So, would you have done the same in my position? Or would you have walked away and let them take advantage of your hard work? Justice served, one story at a time. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for watching the Payback Ball, where revenge is always on the menu.